part 2 of our music words with Mr. Sheard. Hello, Mr. Sheard.
Hello.
And what words are we talking about today?
So is it texture, silence, structure and dynamics.
Excellent. And what are they?
So texture is basically how many sounds are played. So you can have a thin texture if I was just singing, or if Miss joined me singing, it would be a thicker texture because there'd be two parts that you could hear.
Would that involve if we started playing the drums, would that add to the texture then?
Absolutely. So the thicker the thin.
Okay, get a bit of keyboard in.
That's
very
the one.
textured.
Yeah.
So that's why some music seems very almost overwhelming and you don't know almost what the different sounds are because it all just goes together.
So even in an orchestra you might just have one violin playing and then you might have a couple more things and then the texture goes out of more the instruments.
If it's more than one violin, do they tend to play the same piece or do they vary?
They can vary the notes, so you have different.
Would there be any point in them all doing the same?
Yeah, well, yeah, so you get a bigger sound.
Okay, right, gotcha. Okay. Microphones, we want microphones. I know nothing about music. And if you could fill out your frame model for texture. So if you could just fill in the frame model today. Amazing. And let's have a look at what I did. So the definition is how many sounds are playing. Characteristics, lots of sounds create a thick texture, limited sounds create a thin texture, and sounds can be made by the same instruments or by different instruments. Examples are a song performed by one singer with an acoustic guitar would be a really thin texture, and a full orchestra playing the same piece would create a much thicker texture. Non-examples are the volume. So the volume can change by adding more texture, but texture is not just about volume, it's about the amount of sounds in the sound.
Dynamics. Dynamics is how loud or how quiet something is. So the volume of the music.
How's that different from volume?
Pardon?
How is it different from volume? Is it just exactly
the same?
It's a synonym of volume?
Or we just call it dynamics.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, we have Italian terms. We've got forte or piano for soft.
Piano, a piano.
That's why the piano was called the piano.
The pianoforte.
The proper name
so
for piano
soft and
is pianoforte because you can play both soft and loud.
Oh, that's
on the
amazing.
piano.
Oh, I love that.
You
Oh, a bit of etymology. Love it. And they're Italian.
Italian again, yeah.
Ah, fabulous.
And crescendo to get louder and diminuendo to get softer.
Oh, I've never heard of diminuendo, but I suppose it comes from diminutive and everything, doesn't it? It's the same.
Oh, there you go.
Amazing. I like that. I'm going to start talking about the dynamics instead of volume from now on, and nobody will know what I'm talking about. Or they'll all know and it was just me. If you could fill out your frame model for dynamics, please. So if you could fill in the frame model for dynamics, that would be great. Wonderful, and let's see what I put. So for definition, dynamics is how loud or how quiet a piece of music is. Characteristics, this is the same as volume. There are lots of Italian words to describe the level of volume. For example, piano means quiet or soft, while forte means loud. The pianoforte was named because it can play both volumes. And as a result of that, our examples are piano and forte, and our non-examples are tone, because that is a different thing. And our next word is?
Structure. Basically how things are organised. So again, obviously you'll know this in English, but obviously we have words like verse, chorus, intro, outro, middle eight.
Yeah, just like we'd have stanzas in poetry.
Absolutely.
And, talk about openings and stuff.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Very easy.
So when you're structuring it, do they do any composition when they're doing music?
So we have things, we call them forms, so we have binary form, which is just A and B. So the tuning for section A and the tune for section B, but B has to be different than A.
Okay.
Obviously. And then we have ternary form, A, B, A.
Okay.
The quick example is Twinkle Twinkle.
Oh, right.
Twinkle Twinkle is A, Twinkle
Yeah.
Twinkle little star, how I wonder what you are. The B section, up above the sun, and so different, goes back to A. Twinkle Twinkle little star.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's kind of like rhyme schemes in poetry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, wonderful. So if you could fill out your frame model. Could you fill out your frame model for structure? And let's see what I put. So our definition is the way a piece of music is put together. Our characteristics are the fact that it is an important part of composing music. Examples would be binary form and ternary form. And non-examples would be the notes. And finally, we have my favourite, because I really know this one. I knew structure, but I feel like I get this one. This is the preferable one when it comes to me and music. Our final word is...
Next word is... silence. Basically, yeah, I mean, think of a good definition for that, but basically where there is no music. Really important, really useful in film music, especially horror music, where there probably won't be anything for a while, there'll be silence. And then to get, someone to jump, they do that kind of thing, and you jump out.
Sometimes it's really effective in films when there's long periods of silence. It makes you very uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
And I suppose even in like songs and stuff, if there's a bit of a pause in the middle of the song, it's like, ooh, is it over?
It can be really effective.
You were going to tell us about the orchestra with the silence.
So a really famous piece of music by a guy called John Cage, and it's just called 4 minutes 33, and it's basically 4 minutes 33 of silence.
Is that more art or music?
Well, there you go. That's all he was trying to say, wasn't it? So every performance of it will be slightly different, because it's the audience that's making all the sounds. So if we listen now, we might hear people playing football and stuff like that, and then maybe an hour later there'll be different sounds. There might be a lawnmower out there, etc. So it's the sound around you.
I love that. Can you fill out your Freya model for silence, please? And our final word today is silence. So if you could fill in the Freya model for silence. Great, so here's what I've put for silence. I've put the definition as a lack of sound. The characteristic, silence is important because it creates a strong contrast with the louder parts, or even quiet parts, because silence is silence and therefore different from both. Examples: the quiet in a horror movie that increases the tension before something bad happens. But also like in a song, where it goes quiet for a bit, you're like, is it over? And then it's like, oh no, it's not over. It's always quite exciting. And non-examples would be noise. Any noise. Any noise is not silence. And finally, if you can go on to your spellings. So if you could spell texture for me. Texture. And dynamics. Dynamics. Structure next. Structure. And silence. Silence. Fabulous. So if you check those spellings, have a look at the things that make in the sibilant sounds in silence. First one's an S, second one's a C. We've also got an S and a C in structure, but the second is making a very different sound. Structure. And now we'll go back to our spellings. So cover those first ones. And try again with texture. Dynamics. Structure. And silence. Check them for a second time. Making sure that you've got the U in texture, the Y in dynamics, not an I. And making sure that you are getting all the spellings correct. If you can't get them all correct, then that's fine. You can chill out now, but make sure you actually do. If not, give them another little go. Cover them up there. And go again for texture. Dynamics. Structure. and silence. And now if you could complete your definitions, add in a little dual code for each, and making sure that the spelling is correct. And thank you very much to Mr. Sheard and to everybody watching, and I will see you on next week's Macmo Literacy. Thank you for joining us for another week on Macmo Literacy. If you enjoy starting with a word and then ending up in a rambling journey to who knows where, then I suggest that you hit like and subscribe. Also, if you just want to be a pal, like and subscribe. See you next week.